Hey everyone, I'm Victor Dwyer, and this is the Mind Workshop podcast. And today we have Isaiah on. He has a really awesome story about how he got into all this. And then we're going to dive into what it really takes to scale up a brand and the ways to really just make it successful. Isaiah, thank you so much for coming on today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks, Victor. I'm excited to be here and connect with you and your audience. And so I guess uh, I am Isaiah Fritz, and I'm from Southern Indiana, right across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. 23-year-old entrepreneur. We did Amazon since I was 15 years old, and now doing 8 figures. By my main business is I will help brands that are non-Amazon focused to just be able to be their one and only partner, buy their product, sell it on the platform, and also control the platform, control the customer experience, do all the PPC and everything that brand needs, and they can just hand it off to us, and we just work off margin. So that's a little bit about our company today, and we got 32 people in this 60,000 square foot facility in Southern Indiana, and it's been quite the adventure the last couple of years getting here.
So that is so funny. So I'm 22, okay? So and I also started my journey at 15. And
Ooh.
that's so funny. The reason why I'm curious on what initially got you started because the reason why I got started for personally was because this voice came into my life saying, "Hey, you got to get serious with working. You got to be working. You got to be going towards something in your future." And that's what really got me started on my trajectory of working, finding internships. I went the more marketing route rather than like the product route. But
Nice.
I'm curious on what was that like voice or what was that starting point, that seed that grew in your head to get you started when you were 15?
Oh, wow, that is a great.
And I know it is a very loaded question, and I know you probably need time to process that,
No,
but
no, it's
like,
it's cool. Like, I
yeah,
almost wanna, like, ask you a little bit more about this voice. Like, how did this, like
yeah.
like, what voice is telling you, "Dude, you need to, like, work. You're 15." I mean, like, is that your mom? Like, you know?
No, like that's the thing. Like I went from 14 being a completely normal teenager, like playing video games. I give video games for 14 hours a day, not
Dude,
worrying
that's
about anything. And then all of a sudden, I said like this voice just came into my life and I couldn't sleep anymore. It was saying, "Hey, you got to be working." Like I would play a video game like 1 hour a day and I would criticize myself and like literally judge myself saying, "Hey, you played video games 1 hour. You could have been working. You could have been working. You could have been doing this." And it just got louder and louder and louder. And the only way I knew how to deal with that is with by working. So that's how I eventually started working. I worked like crazy, obviously, and how I ended up becoming successful is because of that voice. And
that's
I realized it was grounded in judgment of like judging myself and trying always to be perfect was the reason why, because I was insecure deeply. And it made it where I judge myself and criticize myself trying to be perfect every single day. And then I realized, hey, it's important to just have progress over perfection, where you just can say, hey, it's okay. You got to forgive yourself and just say, I'm this much better than I was yesterday. And that's my goal. My goal is not to be perfect. I will never be perfect. My goal is just to be a little bit better than the person I was yesterday.
man, words of wisdom from Victor. I love that. Great. Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
that's 100% it. So let me answer your question about this voice. So, from my experience, it was a little bit different. I, from a really young age, wanted to be like my dad. My dad worked at a Christian nonprofit, and he was like super hard worker, and he like was very dedicated to the nonprofit world, and would he'd come home at 1 a.m. and work all the time, and I
Yeah.
was like, man, I just want to be like my dad. And when I was young, and like really make a difference in people's lives and stuff, and so I started volunteering like in the nonprofit when I was like, I don't know, 13, 14, whatever I could do. I just there was like a youth camp local that I worked at. And I was doing this whole like Amazon thing on the side. And it just, I just found that in the nonprofit world, you can make such an impact on people's lives. But
Mhm.
You can also do that in the for-profit world, right? And
Yeah.
so when I remember one of my goals was like, I want to make enough money on the side that I can give back my payroll that I was making, when
Yeah.
I was 17 years old, working in this nonprofit, and I was able to do that, and I just felt good about that. And then so I was like, wait a second, if I go full time doing this, maybe I could pay everyone else's payroll too. And so I ended up doing that, and so it was pretty cool. So that kind of really got me up in the morning and said like, hey, I want to actually take this to a company making millions of dollars, not just like this side gig on the side of, to freelance or something. So I guess that for
Yeah.
me, that was really the passion and the voice behind it.
Yeah, that's super interesting. But how did that's amazing that you had that purpose. How
Yeah.
did that take you to the next level? Because you know how when people like they say they have a purpose, but they usually don't work toward it. Like they kind of know it, where it's like, yeah, I want to help people, I want to be a better person, but at the same time, like they just watch Netflix all day. I'm curious, what made you different? Where you're like, hey, like I'm just not, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna work hard. What separated you from the other person that like literally just would have been lazy? What like was it that purpose? Like was it that like did you have
Yeah.
an extra strong purpose? What made that different?
Yeah. I mean, I had a strong passion of wanting to help others and make a difference in their lives. And I also, for whatever reason, had this thing that by the time I turned 18, I wanted to move out on my own and be financially responsible. So I, was able to build my house with cash, kind of, when I was 18. Um, and maybe got some credit cards out and did a few things, but I definitely did not use a traditional mortgage. But um,
Mhm.
that's a story for another time. But anyway, so I don't know, that really motivated me also, to be financially independent. And then I really like the high and the rush of buying something for $1 and selling it too. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
like, I mean, maybe a lot of people don't have that built in, but like for me, like that gives me way more of a rush. Like I too used to be really into video games, but like what I call this is my real life video game, like something
Yeah.
where like the points are the dollars, right? And so I can just be
Mhm.
like, wow, I can actually go and buy something for $1 and sell it for two, which is really fun. And the video game is really fun, but just that enough is not just that alone is not enough for me to get myself up in the morning and say I'm just going to go deal with HR issues, right? So like I
Yeah.
think so not
Yeah.
only is it the drive to play the game, but also the drive that I know that I'm making differences in other people's lives in a positive way.
Yeah, so you've kind of like found something a little niche that you kind of enjoyed. They're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, this is cool. I can turn $1 into 2." And
yeah,
then you just kept building on that high, and that's kind
yeah.
of what got you motivated to kind of really just driving through at 15 to eventually start working your way up. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I mean, to me, it's fun, to
Mhm.
do Amazon and to, list something online and just get a bunch of sales and be like, "Oh my goodness, like, I made profit on that." Like, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then let's go through a little bit on your journey of like obviously when you got suspended as a seller, that was a
Ooh, I got
very like
something.
hard
Yeah,
that was a very hard time in your life when like I heard there was like debt and then you didn't know what to do and there was it was a whole bad scenario, a whole storm of just horrible things that happened. And like guide me through the experience of kind of how because a lot of people would have shut down right there. They would have just gone, nope, like I can't handle this. This is too stressful. I can't do this anymore, and they would have just given up like right there. So
yeah.
what made you just pivot rather than say like what was it's rather than saying okay, I know what I need to do. I need to do this instead. And rather than you saying that, what how did you not just shut down and not just how did you deal with that stress is my question.
That's a good question. You want me to kind of tell a little bit on how I got suspended, and then
Yeah,
you
sure.
gotta talk about how I got
Yeah,
into it.
yeah, yeah.
There's a little like backstory there. So like I was selling a bunch of stuff, and I was buying and selling from like liquidation partners, where get a pallet of liquidation or whatever, and sell it on Amazon. A lot of name brand stuff, and I sold 14,000 items in I think it was around 2017, 18, and I I had 3 counterfeit complaints, and I couldn't appeal them with valid invoices from the suppliers, which Amazon required. So Amazon suspended my account. Held At that time they were holding $40,000 from me, which is like all I had, and they said they were going to keep it indefinitely. And so during that time, I remember like, wow, well, what am I going to do? I hate Amazon now, and
Mhm.
I had a lot of emotions in that, and it was very stressful because, yeah, there was, like you said, a lot of debt. There was a lot of, I was borrowing money to make inventory purchases, and I've always done that, um, and so I guess what I thought was, I guess one of the thoughts that came to my head was, man, I'm really glad I just paid off that huge cabbage loan. Does anybody here maybe remember cabbage? It was like this, like they did revenue based financing. So if you've done any revenue based financing, that was that's what they hooked up to your Amazon account, and would give you a loan. And I couldn't get approved for anything else. So the other thing I had was credit card debt. Um, so so I think I had at that time over $100,000 in credit card debt. Um,
Wow.
yeah. But I just paid off that cabbage loan, which was a lot higher interest rate than and so I was like, well, I'm glad I just paid that off. I was like, now I just got to figure out how to pay $100,000 off in credit card debt. So I'm like, I know I can,
Wow.
I know I can just sell stuff on eBay, and I'm like, but this is, so I went and I just started flipping stuff on eBay, like high margin, like buying liquidation, whatever I could find, and I made a really good deal. Um, where I bought a bunch of cell phones this guy had that were locked, and I sold them overseas. And I bought them for like $5 a piece and sold them for $20 a piece, and I did like 1,000 of them or something. I don't know. I made like 20 grand. Um, and and then I remember thinking, okay, that kind of, that gave me a little extra boost. So I was like, okay, I can pay off this. My Amazon account still shut down. It was shut down for like 9 months.
Wow.
But I was like, hey, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna hustle it out. I mean, it's just like life goes on. I still got these bills. I gotta just figure out what to do next. But yeah, it was really, really, really stressful. And I at that time I was like, I'm just gonna do some real estate stuff. But I found out I didn't really know anything about real estate. I wasn't good at that. I I was like, the only thing I really know how to do is buy something for $1 and flip it online. It's all I had done to that point in my life. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I guess at that point I was just like, my fallback was eBay, and I just what kept me going is just keep hustling. But you know what the hardest part about that whole situation though, Victor, was
What?
I had one employee and I had to lay him off. And for
Really?
me, that was the hardest part. That was the hardest part because I was like, man, like this guy was planning on sticking with me, and we had built this together, and it was great. He wasn't part owner. I mean, he was just an employee, but still, it just like
Hmm.
it was painful. But I tried my best to like be as nice as possible. Like I gave him like an extra week pay, and like tried to
Hmm.
tried to help him
Yeah.
out. But like it was I don't know, like that was harder than anything.
Yeah, and that shows a lot about your character and like who you are. That you're going through all these things, and you're going through like there's a lot of things personally that going through your life with the money and everything else, but yet you're still care about that person's feelings, and you're still displaying empathy for them. And that's very strong. It's a very strong characteristic, saying like, "Hey, I really care about this person." And you have to make that hard decision, but doing it anyway, it's not easy. It's not easy. And like it's a scenario that I have to go through at times where the person's amazing. We have a very strong culture in my company where we
Right.
also say I love each other and things like that. And if someone's not a good fit, or they're
Yeah.
not performing, like I say like, hey, like I love you, you're amazing, but like it's like kind of like a golden retriever moment where they're so pretty, they're amazing to be around, but when it comes to performance, they suck. Like it's really like that's really what it is. And you have to have those hard conversations saying like, hey, like we really got to work on these results. You're an amazing person, but when it comes to the results, something's got to be there. And like it's still really hard to have those conversations. And I definitely sympathize with that because it's when you have that really good attachment, you know they're a good person, and that's where it's really important.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
I appreciate it. I think uh, that you know but it helped build my business character where now it's like I kind of just I get it. Like if I have to lay someone off, then I know that there are other jobs out there that they can get, and it's because I've been through that. For me, I don't know. It was my first employee, and it was just like we were in this together, and we were young. But now I'm like, if you lay them off, it's actually sometimes I have the mindset now. It's probably better for them to
Mm,
because they if it isn't working at this company at your company, they're miserable and you're miserable. So it's
yep.
better for them to get something that they're happier with, and I'm glad we live in a climate where there still is a lot of available jobs out there.
100%. And I have the very like good strong mentality of like I know that anyone that joins my company is not going to stay in my company forever. That
Yeah,
my goal is to like grow you personally and grow you as a person. And then if you leave, that's totally okay. Like I still you're still part of the family. You're still there. And this one employee, like she was one of my top employees, one of my best employees, and she said she was leaving, and I was like, I sent a video to her like saying like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. Thank you for all the work that you've done. I love you. You're the best. Here's why. And I'm so pumped for wherever you go. I'm gonna miss you. And then she told me, Victor, you made me cry. I found a way to stay. Thank you so much. I love it. I love you. And she ended up staying because of it. That was not my intention, but like that's my mentality. Like because you burn so many bridges
yeah. Don't.
when you like you say like hey like or like I could have easily responded by saying hey screw you like oh my gosh, but if you have that good mentality of saying like hey I want you to succeed as a person no matter where you go, then they go wow, like no matter where they go they're probably not going to find another person like that. So if they ever want to be in a happy workplace or to have that strong culture, they go oh Victor's my guy, I got to go to Victor. Like that, like that's what I want to go through their head. And it's a very long-term mindset. Like rather than saying, "Oh, screw you," very short-term anger, like you long-term like, "Hey, next 10 years let's work together," type of thing.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
good wisdom from the victor.
What would you say like to anyone else that goes through either account suspensions or going through a hard time? What advice do you have for them that either helps you get through it or like what kind of helps navigate that to make it better for you?
That's a good question. Um,
Because there's a lot of pieces in like being stressed, like being able to handle stress and handling that in a positive way, and like not drinking or not getting not becoming a drunk or alcoholic or things like that. Like there's bad ways to deal with stress and good ways, and like it sounded like what you did, you really were able to pivot in a really good way. I have not heard someone being able to pivot from $100,000 in credit card debt. So that's very, very impressive, I have to say. So I'm just curious if there's anything that either if it's motivation, like what do you think was the factor to you getting through that?
Yeah, I mean, well, one advantage I had is I was young, wasn't married, didn't have a family, and my expenses were fairly low. So, I mean, $100,000 is not the. I guess to me, it's not like you do the math. I mean, even if I went and got a job for 50 grand a year, I mean, within you know 3-4 years, I would have had it paid off anyways. So, I mean, like. I think if as long as you just sit there and you really take inventory and you think, okay, what is worst case scenario in whatever my situation is, and how can what do I need to do to get out? What is the path that needs to get out? And then you think, and then obviously don't do this by yourself. I mean, go to people you trust, your friends, your family, and say like, hey, I'm going through this. To me, is the best is to talk. For me, is always just talking to others that you trust. I'm really blessed that I have a lot of people in my life that I can go to. Like if it's my parents or my friends or whatever. I mean, I have so many people that I can go to, and I trust. Not everyone has a lot of people, but maybe hopefully you have one person you could share with what you're going through. But that's one thing, and then also just thinking like realistic, like okay, emotionally this is really hard, but realistically, I'm not going to die. I mean, we're not in a
Yeah.
culture where you're going to get beheaded or something. Like it's okay. Like you're
Yeah.
fine. I mean, you might lose your house. Worst case scenario, okay, I can buy another one in 5, 10 years if I work hard. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. That's an amazing mentality to have. I recently made a video about how when we're very narrow focused, when we only see the problem, it becomes so much bigger. It's all we see in our vision is like how like this problem. What am I gonna do? And like ways to resolve that, asking yourself like, hey, is the world going to explode? Like, will you still be alive? Will this matter in 5 years? And
Yeah,
if you have that, like, no matter how bad the problem is, this sentence will always solve that. We are ants floating on a rock going through space with trillions of other rocks. And if we were to vanish tomorrow, no one would notice. That solves every problem that you could ever have in existence.
yeah,
So,
that
yeah.
makes sense. And I think another thing is put yourself in perspective of others. Like we especially those that live in America, like we are like so rich, like so
Yep.
like
Yes, we are.
compared to like 90% of the population, even if you're $100,000 in debt and living in your mom's basement, you are still like incredibly rich.
Yeah.
So like, you're okay. Like
Yes.
you have food, you're fine.
It's
Compare
like
yourself to others.
when it comes to my level of gratitude, like I'm just thankful that I was given the chance of life. Like if I like just the gift of life of consciousness, like we're just trillions of chemical equations, and if any of those chemical equations get messed up, we die. Like it's that simple. And there's so many processes in order to keep us alive. I'm thankful if I were to just live for a second, like out of the womb and then just die, I would have been grateful for that 1 second. Like much less like to actually have a life and live it to this full extent, and on top living in America and
Yeah,
like going through like all these levels of gratitude and having that support system of my family, like all these like amazing things. Like you can't there's no such thing as being too grateful. Like you can't like there's so many ways to be grateful. And unfortunately, due to negativity bias and so much negativity in the world, everyone hates their lives even though
yeah,
it's way better than it was 1,000 years ago. Then the more we progress, the more like we negative we are becoming is because of this media and social media of saying like, oh, here's all the bad things that happen in the world. And we're because of negativity bias, we respond to that a lot more. Our emotions are a lot stronger toward the negative than they are positive. So that's where I try to create content that is more positive to the world to offset all the negativity out there because there's so much out there.
yeah, that makes sense. And I was like, I totally agree. And like, why are we not the most happiest people in the world? Like,
Yeah.
even if you're $100,000 in debt and have nothing but, we can still go to a food pantry and get food. It's like
Yeah.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy I'm here and
Mhm.
so like, but yeah, so that's good.
Like, what would you say has been the biggest fundamental success for you? Like it like what is your definition of success? Is it having that 8-figure like brand? Is it like what is your definition of success? Is it having that house? Is it having like what would you say is your definition of success that kind of got you to this point?
Um, My definition of success. That's good. I like how I'm just gonna pause to recognize that like you're hitting all
Yeah.
these like very like emotional, personal questions that are like like other people like they might ask like what's your margins? Later, but like you're just hitting all these like these emotional, personal questions, which is
Right,
great.
right on the needle. Boom.
No, but but anyway, so my definition of success is honestly like being able to live a life wherever God wants you to live. As for me. I mean, I that's the way I always believe, and I don't care. Like I always tell people, like if I'm supposed to be in Mexico, working in a bean field and making 2 pesos a day, and like that's what I'm supposed to do. Like I would be happy to do it. It's like
Yeah.
as long as I know that I'm living for others and I'm helping out as much as I can. That to me is success. Um, but I think like when you live your life for yourself and you're just saying like, hey, my success is my money, or my success is this, or I did this or whatever, like then like yeah, I mean, it's you're not gonna find that happiness. So I
Mhm.
think if you really focus on truly living for others, then you'll be the happiest person ever, and then that will make your life successful. So um and that's the reason why I do business, right? So
Mhm.
like the reason I do business is to help other people. So
Yeah.
uh and I do know like when I'm taken care of, I can help more people. Like right, if I'm like sitting there starving or like something, then my health's down or whatever, then I'm not going to be able to help as many other people. So like as long as you like keep that in the forefront, you'll definitely be way more successful and happy. And if you see a lot of like the very like successful rich people are people that have visions and missions beyond money. And I know this is very controversial, but like even like Jeff Bezos always said, like the reason I built Amazon was to make money to build a space company, right? And like, he's like, and a lot of
Yeah.
people like make fun of him and all that stuff. But like, if you really hear him talk about it, he's like, my mentality is, it's like I envision a world with 1 trillion humans, and we're not going to be able to fit on Earth. We're going to need to be able to go to space and do all this stuff. And right now, nobody's focusing on it. And it's like if
Yeah.
I can be the person who focuses and makes that happen for humanity, then that's and maybe he's making it all up, which is possible. I could be making up everything I'm saying in this podcast, but it's very possible, right? You get, you never know. But to me, it's like if you see like a lot of like people that are very successful, it's because they focus on like either whatever product they're delivering or whatever there is to actually help someone. And when you do
Yeah.
that, like you're gonna get some small percentage of whatever value you grow in the world. Like most companies don't make like 90% margins, right? You're usually
Yeah.
making a small percentage of all the value that comes into your front door.
So, what would you say? So, you had a very interesting childhood where your father was part of the nonprofit, and
Yeah,
that led you to being more selfless.
yeah.
So, most of us are selfish, especially Americans. We're very, very selfish people. What would you say to someone to be more selfless and to be a better person?
Yeah, she
Like,
always
like,
like
because you kind of like you already had that childhood. How would you sprout that seed? What recommendations would you give to someone saying, "Hey, like, this is how to be a little bit more selfless. Like, this is how to get that initial feeling
have
of
you
like finding
have
that external purpose."
Have you ever heard that you're the average of the 5 people you're around the most?
Yeah.
So the first thing I would say is think back in your life the people that you most admire and you want that were selfless, and like just hang out with them a lot. Like number one,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
that's number one. Number two, like any sort of like religion you're going that you actually practice are going to teach you to be selfless. So like if there's
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's like millions of books about whatever, but if you like really focus on whatever your religion is, like you're that's the basis of like most all religions, right? Because
Yeah.
you're living for something else. You're living for God, right? So like
Mhm.
that's what I would say, put a step in the right direction. Um, but just being around the people that are selfless and that you admire, um, and uh, and I think for me, like this is like a life hack that I've always done is like, especially in business, like if there's anybody in business that I want to be like I go and I read all of their books and I listen to all of their podcasts and I just listen to everything that they've ever said and I'm like, okay, I want to get into their brain. I want to hear it from them. Like you want to hear it from not what a biography that someone else wrote about them, but I want to hear exactly from them what their mindset is and whatever that mindset was that helped them get there. And so that's something that I've done since I was like 15, and
It's
it
amazing.
helped me grow into that mindset. Like I remember I was 15, like I went and I watched every 2-hour long interview with Jeff Bezos that there was because I was like, this guy's like super successful, built Amazon. That's amazing. I'm just gonna watch every interview with Jeff Bezos, and I was like, I learned a ton. Like one thing I learned about was customer obsession. I was like, back then I was like, I didn't realize the importance of customer obsession, right? Like
Mhm.
until it's like, oh wow, like yeah, that makes sense. I read the autobiography of Henry Ford because I thought like Ford was cool, and he always talked about customer obsession. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to read about these other like billionaires. And it's like customer obsession. I was like, wow, that is like super important. And I realized back then I was like, wow, there's nothing about my business model. Just buying stuff from liquidation and selling it on Amazon is there's no customer obsession in this model. Like, so I'm
Yeah.
kind of in a model now where I actually have like clients that I'm working with that I'm like really obsessed over the customer or try to be. And I don't know. So yeah, so going back to my life hack, just it's pretty simple and a lot of and to get them good mentors. Like there's so many people out there that are successful that want to share, and the best way to start is in your local community. Like every single business that you see in your local community has a founder, it has a owner. And so just knocking on their door and asking like, hey, can I talk to the owner? I would love to learn from them. Like I've
Yeah.
done that so many times. And then you do that, you talk to them, you build a relationship like, hey, I'll take you out to lunch, whatever. And then from there, you'll find the next person. You'll find the next person, or reach out on LinkedIn to successful people. And like doing that has helped me so much because it's like I know if I'm hanging out with people that are doing $100 million in business, like I'm gonna have their mindset, right? But if I'm hanging
Mhm.
out with people that are poor and uh, bums and whatever, like you're gonna have
Yeah.
their mindset, right? That hey, just play video games all day, right?
And what's super interesting is like you probably went through this as well. The five of my friends, like when it came to business, none of them were even close on the business
Yeah,
level, like of me executing. Like they would play video games all day. Like I didn't
yeah,
have these like super amazing friends to like, oh, I wish I was more like they were super smart. I was friends with nerds. I'm a nerd my whole life, but that they were smart. But when it came to business, no one even did like 1% of the work that I did. Like I was an extreme version of that. And what you just
because
made
that's
me
the
real
voice.
what? Say that one more time?
Because of the voice. Because of the voice.
The voice, yes. And
Yeah,
what you made me realize is we live in a very amazing age where information is so readily available. I think
yeah,
that really influences those five people that were constantly around. Because my friends, they weren't like these super people, these amazing people saying like, "Oh, I got to be killing it in business and doing that." But
yeah,
I did watch Gary Vaynerchuk. I did watch all these really big Simon Sinek, all the biggest people out there, and that influenced my brain saying,
yeah,
"Oh, I want to be more like these people." And those five people that influenced me, like
yeah,
like those were really strong indicators because of the content I consumed that really changes those five people that are constantly around you, and they start to influence your life. So that's really fascinating. You made me just realize that how the content we consume is
yeah.
also a factor in how we change in the way we view ourselves. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be here without the internet.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
neither would I.
exactly. So I mean, like it. And before that, we had books, right? That's how influence. I mean, that's why the pen is more powerful than the sword.
Yeah.
It's always been that way. And but now we just have more information that can be shared, and that's the only difference between now and history.
I wanted to make sure to ask you this. What is the defining moment when you realize, so this is happiness? Because a lot of people, they go through and like they either don't really realize it, it just kind of happens naturally. What was that defining moment saying, hey, this is happiness?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's way before I made a dollar. You know,
Hmm.
it's just I
Yeah.
think I talked about it before. I mean,
Hmm.
it's I think when I fully like let go of myself, that's when it
Hmm.
was, as when I let go of myself and said like, I'm no longer living for myself. That was the moment, and that was, right at the beginning of my journey. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean, I have nothing to worry about. Like
Yeah.
I have no nothing. Like I don't fear what's going to happen with my business. I don't financially. I don't fear death. I don't fear anything. Like I don't. I
Hmm.
am like. I mean, I have bad days. I have good days. I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
whatever. It's still like whatever happens. Like I'm okay. So, I mean,
Mhm.
bad things still happen. Like people die and get sick and all. We live in a crazy life, but like it's
Mhm.
it's it's overall I'm good. So yeah.
You have to, it comes down to like stoicism is really powerful because there's always going to be horrible things that happen about it. But if we can't change 90, we can't control 95% of what happens. 99% of what happens to us, we can't control. And a lot that scares a lot of people where they say, "Oh my gosh, I can't control it." That's a horrible thing. But it's kind of like settling. Like we don't control what happens to us. You can just literally live life naturally in flow and
Yep.
realize like yes, it's important to work hard. Yes, it's important to do those things, but like at the same time, like you can only work so hard and do so many things and it doesn't make sense to worry about what's happening like on the other side of the world. It's important to be educated on it sometimes, but worrying about it isn't going to change anything. Like you have to ask yourself, is worrying about this going to change the outcome? Like if it's not going to change the outcome, there's really no point to worry about it. And
There's
I'm not saying just don't do anything, don't be scared. Like, I'm not saying that because there's going to be things that you're going to naturally worry about, but it's important to have that balance of like not having to worry about every single thing because that's what the news makes you think. The news makes you wait like you got to worry about this, you got to be doing this, and there's just no point. So
yeah.
yeah.
I just realized. I know you said this earlier, but you said you're younger than me, so I guess you were born in 2000,
2001.
2001. Ah,
Yes.
because I was born in 99 still. So like
Yeah.
this is pretty cool. Like I don't meet many like business owners that uh, are younger than me. So that's pretty cool. Like how big is your company? Like I don't even know.
Yeah, so I own a content marketing agency
Yeah.
for tool providers and service providers,
Yeah.
and we have about 20 people,
Wow.
20 people in the company, and like the goal is just to increase sales and like basically create more content. Like literally the personal, like I
You're
just created a
basically
vision.
increase sales. I mean, really? Like increase sales? Like
Oh, oh, wait, it used to be increased sales for other companies. Yes, through content marketing. Yes.
wow. No, that's great. No, that is super cool, man. So
Mhm.
that's awesome. Like I
Yeah,
I, I knew. I mean, I looked you up. I had your company and stuff, but like I didn't realize like wow, it's like you were
and
younger than me.
yeah, and it all started like with that vision of like it really is my personal mission statement of
Right.
like my life. Like I read a lot of books and things like that now, listen to a lot of books. And my personal mission statement is to spread positivity to like I was given the gift to break down these concepts of what happiness is and break down the concepts in my brain. And I was also given this marketing side of myself. And it's no coincidence that those things I believe in fate. So I think those happen for a reason. And
Yeah.
I think it's my responsibility to display and show how other people can be happy as well. And I used to show people how to sell on Amazon, how to be successful there. And I
Yeah.
used to run an Amazon agency. And then
Yeah.
I realized no matter how rich I can make these people, I can show people how to make millions of dollars. but they're never going to be happy. Like no matter how successful I make a person, they're always going to want to chase more and more, especially in America. That's our mentality. More, 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 more. And they never stop for a second to think like, hey, like, why am I chasing these more things? Like, and that's where I was really like, wait a second, I need to start making content, not showing how to make people money, but actually how to be happy on a day-to-day basis, because no one is happy. There are a lot of miserable millionaires out there, and
That
it's
that's what I
scary.
think. Yeah,
It's scary. And you probably see that on your side.
yeah,
And that's where I want to like take a step back and say, hey, like it's okay to like it's okay to make $50,000 a year and be happy. Like that's my version of success. If someone is making $10,000 a year and they are just happier than ever, that is my version of success. That's how I see it. But it's a very common trait in America where we see the person with the Lamborghini, the person with the mansion, and then we go, oh my gosh, I want to be that person. But little do they know is if they're showing those things off, they are deeply insecure. They are doing that because they do not have enough on the inside of them. They are not feeling satisfied with their life. So they have to display it to other people to convince them that I'm successful. Look at me, look how successful I am. And they try to feel good about themselves because of that. But most people, most of the billionaires already know this. Billionaires don't look at people with Lamborghinis and go, wow, look how amazing that guy is. Look how cool he is. They look at him and go, wow, this guy is really insecure. This guy, like that's how they look at it, because they know the people that are flashy, that are wearing all the Gucci stuff and all that, they know those people are insecure. And you have to realize that and if you change the version of what success is, then you can start making the steps of saying, hey, I don't need money. I just want to be happy. And once you're in that place, then you can start really changing your life in a positive way, in my opinion.
that's yeah, it makes sense. I think that's right.
And
It,
that's why,
there
yeah, go
there
ahead.
is something you said though about being like out of debt and having that freedom that that you don't have the stress of like, oh my goodness, like where's my next paycheck gonna come from? Like having some sort of financial stability is
Yes,
is
important.
definitely does help out for sure. But
Yes.
like you said, but it can be a $50,000 year job or whatever easily. Like it doesn't have to be making millions. Like for sure, like you can be just as happy with whatever your level of financial stability it is. But there is, especially if you're married and you have a family and like you're trying to like, oh man, make sure everybody's eating and everything. But I think like I love how your mission shifted. Like you were like, hey, this is awesome, and now it's like, how can I make other people happy? So what else? What else can I do to help you on your mission, Victor?
One Piece is we're already doing it, so we're doing
Yes.
content that also talks about it. So we're already accomplishing that task, and it's really fascinating to hear other people's perspective, and also from you're just as young as I am, and it's really
No, I'm older.
amazing. It's older, you're older, whatever. We're around the same age. We'll say that we're around the same age, and to also have that success story of
Yeah.
yes, like yeah, like to say, hey, I have quite a bit of money, but knowing that, hey, this is not going to be my gateway to happiness. Because what's
Yeah.
even worse for people is when they get the thing they've been chasing, and then now they say, now what? Because they wrapped up their entire thing. Like, once I get this car, I'm going to be happy. Once I get this house. But once they realize that that doesn't lead to happiness, they're just stuck there. They're like, now what? Like, I accomplished my goal, and now they're lost. They're like, well, like I'm not happy. I'm still not happy, and it's worse to accomplish your goal, in my opinion, and
Mhm.
realize that's not happiness than actually not ever reaching that goal. Because when you're not reaching that goal, you're chasing it, and once you accomplish it, then you're like, now what? And you just keep doing that over and over and over until you die. That's literally like what people do. They just do that their entire lives, that automated thing. And they do it until they die. And it's just, they live
Yeah.
their whole life as a robot, basically, of constantly chasing happiness and never reaching it. And trying to flip that on its side and gain all these perspectives from different people and implement them into my life, and trying to display that is kind of what I've been trying to do. And I love how you've already accomplished so many things at such a young age, and you still having that realization like, hey, this is not my gateway to happiness. Like it really isn't. I love that. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I've had happiness, you know. Now I
Mhm.
just now I just want more people to have it.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like that's a common trait of people that are happy. That
Yeah.
there's the insecure people that are showing off how much like their Lamborghinis, their houses and things like that. That's what they show off. But people that are genuinely happy with themselves, they they don't care about anything else. Like they don't care about how they look in other people's eyes. They say, "Hey, I have so much happiness inside of me. How do I help other people be happy like me?" And that's when you know you're in a successful state, that you have so much
Mm.
happiness that you're trying to communicate it outward. And that's when you know, like, hey, this person is like doing it in a really good place, and that they're genuinely happy and they just don't care about anything else, to be honest.
Victor, man, I love it. This is great. I have to admit, this was a little more it was a little different than I expected this podcast to go.
And I will say, like, usually we do talk the normal, like, the normal, like, oh, what are your profit margins and things like
Right.
that. But I decided to like put a little twist on it. But
I love it, man. This is so much fun, man. That's good. So somebody had a question on here, but
yes,
is it Facebook?
Hanzala, yes, there we can start the Q&A. If you have any questions,
Yeah, I
or
don't
if
know.
anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot them across. We've talked about a lot of very, very deep honestly, this is deeper than I thought it was going to be, when it
Yeah,
comes down to the amount of depth that we approached in the podcast. But I love it. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, like fire away when it comes to your
nice.
question.
And I like this platform too that you're using. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's Restream. We've been using it forever. It's been a way to basically broadcast to Facebook, LinkedIn,
Yeah,
all the other things, and I love it.
it's awesome.
And I don't think we have any other questions in the chat from what I see. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure you communicate today before we sign off? If there's
Um,
any other note that you thought was valuable, or any other thing that you want to make sure you mention?
see, from my end, I don't really have anything that. Well, actually, I do have something.
Mhm.
So I really like what we were saying earlier about worry, right? And I have this thing I tell my wife. I'm like, worry causes cancer, right? So
Mhm.
just like there has been like medical studies on like when somebody gets diagnosed with things, and if they like start worrying about it, like it'll get worse versus if they take a positive outlook towards whatever they're having. So you can look that up, whatever. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of power in being able to have a positive outlook on things.
And
And
it's so, go ahead, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Victor.
I was gonna say it's so hard to break away from that cycle of constantly worrying, because once those neural pathways are solidified, like you go through that constant perpetual state of constantly worrying, and you have to first realize like, hey, first of all realize you can change, and then you can influence your thoughts and the voices in your head. You have
Yeah,
100% control over those things, but it first all comes down to the willingness to change and realizing you can change. So
yeah,
if you realize those things, a lot of people think they can't change, or they think they can't change and just aren't willing to do it. But
mm,
what they don't realize is that we're always changing. We just don't realize it because it's so small. These like micro changes, we're always getting new data, new stories, new experiences, and they're changing us. Like we are in a perpetual state of change. Tomorrow, I'm gonna have a little bit more insight than I will today, and that's what's super important to realize, that you can change. If you're constantly stressing and worrying about things, you can change it. That's what I
that's
wanted to communicate.
yeah. So what do you do with your money, Victor?
So as long
Yeah,
as I have a roof over my head,
yeah, yeah.
I am able to sleep, and I have water, and I get to go country dancing, Those are like like I love the country dance. Those are my four things that I love. I do go out to eat. So when it comes to like spending money, I country dance, which is my $8. It's an $8 entry fee for guys. So I'm a big spender, as you can tell. I'm a huge spender, and
Where
then
do
I
you
go
live?
out to eat. I go Texas, Dallas, Texas.
Dallas,
So
Texas. Okay, okay. So you're doing these things, but so you're obviously making more money than that. So like, what do you do with your excess?
so I invest it in stocks, which is obviously like I'm like negative, like I'm not doing too well in stocks because stocks are all down for the recession. So I'm not like this amazing
Newsflash.
investor. Yeah, yes. So stocks aren't doing too hot. I have quite a bit in stocks, and then the rest I keep as a cash reserve for my business. And what I learned is, in my doing my business before, is when it comes to scaling, cash is important. It's important to have a good cash reserve so that way you have enough leadway when it comes to cash if I ever want to expand on marketing and things like that. So I keep most of it in the bank, and then I have quite a bit in stocks that build up over time. And the reason why I have so much in cash is because the ROI on that money and my business, I'd rather invest. I really don't care about making profit on my business. I never have. Like I don't care as long as I'm building something and it grows over time. I'm okay with making 0% as long as I have enough money to country dance and eat. Like literally, those are my priorities in life. That's all I care
Do you
about, and then
usually
the
make?
rest I'm pretty much good at. So yeah.
Do you usually make 1%? I mean, is that like normal for you? 1% or zero?
Uh,
Sorry, 0%.
what's the question? What's the question?
So you said you're okay with making 0%.
Yes.
Is that normal for you?
No, I usually operate around 50% profit margins now, but
Nice.
before, I would say like 3 years ago, I would always operate at 0%. Like it was very like I think last year I made $710 on my business. Like that is like last year. That's when I started realizing, hey, it's important to have profit, important to have like those type of things.
Mhm.
And it's all a game. Like I'm always learning. Like that's my number one priority is just constantly learning and developing it. Now we're making really healthy margins and being very profitable. Now that I learned that that's an important piece of it, but my like
I've
seriously, like
been doing business since I was 15, but now I just learned it's
no,
important.
like seriously, like
Like,
because
what?
I enjoy building businesses so much, and I was focusing on scaling my marketing on that side so much. I like I think so long term in the next 10 years, I don't care. Like I know in the next 10 years, I'm gonna be fine with money. Like I'm gonna have no worries when it comes to the amount of money I have. And that's why it's I think so long term that sometimes it's important to think short term, like how much profit am I making right now that I'm gonna be able to build on top of that. And that's what I realized. And because I'm so against like short term thinking that I didn't think profit really even mattered. So that's until recently, that's what I started doing. So yeah.
That's cool. So you're doing this. You have in 10 years, you're like you're thinking, man, you're going to grow this thing into some giant thing, and it'll be amazing. And then at that time, you can exit or do whatever you want. Is that kind of what you're thinking? I'm just curious. Like,
I've seen a lot of agency owners,
mhm.
and I worked with a lot, and I've seen a lot of hugely successful agency owners, and I'm questioning if I even want to be have a big business. And the reason why is they just don't have any time. Like I look at these people, they're making millions of dollars a year, and they just don't have any time to do anything to spend with their kids. They can't get a second out of their day to do anything they've ever wanted to do. And I look at these people and I go, I don't want to be that millionaire. I don't. Like I just want to be happy and I can allocate time to my day however I want to. I'm not owned. I don't have like these responsibilities of, and I don't think I want a huge business. I think I want enough to
So
satisfy and grow, but I don't think I want this huge. I don't want to be this big multi-million-dollar business because I want enough time to spread throughout my day. To be
so
honest,
can I challenge you on that?
yeah,
So
sure.
couldn't you have a big business and spend like 0 or like 10 hours a week on it? I mean, like, why? I mean, I don't really understand why. I mean, like, you're hiring people, right? If
True.
you build a good operating system in your business
It's true.
and it runs itself, like your whole goal or my whole goal, and everybody business owner's goal, in my opinion, should be to build a machine, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been working on, is like, how can I build a machine so in every decision I make, I'm like, how can I make this that I don't have to be a part of it? Like, how can this thing run without me? And so that's always my mindset. But usually my mindset at this point, I'm young, I'm energetic, I have too much fun. I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore, so I can go off and build this bigger or build
Yeah.
more of something, right? So like, if you always have that mindset, because if you think about it, like, I think it's a common misconception. I mean, how much time does Jeff Bezos spend on Amazon when he was the CEO? Now he's like nothing. But like when he was the CEO, he was like, he's just like, yeah, I go to sleep when I want to, I wake up when I want to, and my goal is to make 3 decisions a day.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, he's way richer than any of your agency friends. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's because he built a machine, and
Mhm.
that machine, and he hired really good people to be in the right seats to make it happen. It doesn't require it's a common misconception that highly successful people don't have a lot of time. That means that just means that they're mismanaging their time. It's not required to take a lot of time. You just need to hire the right people and build the right operating system in your business. So that is, my
I really
challenge.
I really like that perspective. And maybe you're right. Like all the people that I've kind of got up to this point haven't been they've always, like, I guess, just didn't manage their time accordingly, and
Mm,
making it where they didn't hire the people for the right places. And I think it's more, the reason why I said that was because of my experiences with the agency owners I've seen in the past. But I think you're right. Like, I think it really comes down to the way you're building that system and those processes, and to make it where you can build a big company and just make sure everyone's executing on the process.
I
Oh,
would
good.
highly recommend listening to Neil Patel, My First Million podcast. And so he talks about how he has like these giant businesses, and he's like, I just go to a meeting like once a month, and he's like, I got 600 employees, and last time I remember I had like 400, and he's like, I just don't know, because
Yeah.
because he's got these like giant businesses, and he's just like doing whatever he wants, because he's like, I don't want to be the CEO. He's like, I just hire a really good CEO that's already built a company, and I just have the vision. I know what needs to be done, and I just put him there, and he does it. So I think like with me, like I'm using Traction EOS system, and we're
Yeah,
implementing.
I was about to say, you read Traction. I'm reading Traction right now, so I knew
No,
you
no,
were.
you can
Yeah,
read it. We got it. The implementing it, right, and
yeah,
is the
true.
important part. So implementing it, it's been great. And it really trains like how to have an operating system for your business that it's going to run without you.
Mhm.
But also, I'm very much in the visionary seat. I have a really good implementer. One of the first hires I made is always all the hires I made was how whatever I'm spending the most time on that I know I can train someone else. I'm gonna hire that out. So like in my Amazon business, it was shipping, right? I'm gonna hire out shipping first, and then
Mhm.
I hired a really good COO early on, that had a lot of corporate experience, and said like, which not everybody has the blessing to do, but I made a really good deal at one point, and I had a pretty good chunk of money, and I
That's
said,
awesome.
hey, I'm going to take this chunk of money and either do something with it, right? So I said I'm going to invest it in people, right? So I invested in a really good COO, invested it in and then from there he was like, he's been a manager for years, he understands how to manage people, manage business, and
Mhm.
he helped me hire, right? So then he say, okay, I'm hiring. And so from day one I was like, this guy, I knew I didn't want to be a people manager. I didn't want
Yeah.
to, that's just not me. And so I needed somebody to do the HR, be the people manager, be the person that has the experience, the gray hair in the room.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how I built, and how I continue to build. And now I have my Amazon business. I also have a residential building company, which we built 14 houses, and we're just building, 6 more.
That's
But
awesome.
that's also, that only takes like 5 hours a week for me,
Wow.
because and I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars because I have a really good people in that business that know what they're doing.
Amazing.
So
Yeah. And
highly,
unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Please, Isaiah, please tell them how to find you and some of your businesses.
oh, absolutely. So online selling partner and onlinesellingpartner.com. And you can look me up on LinkedIn, which there's my email, Isaiah Fritz. But yeah, everybody definitely check out. We're gonna have something called Ecom Summit, ecomsummit.com. It's in Chicago, August 1st and 2nd, and we'd love to see you there and to come by.
Cool, awesome. And Nathan Hans said this. I'm actually enjoying this episode. Something fresh. I can tell you guys actually connect. Way to go. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening. Isaiah, thank you so much for hopping on. We will catch you guys